Obama's war on police and the witch hunt by the cop-hating Department of Justice. Now, all 6 Baltimore officers involved in the Freddie Gray case have been acquitted of all charges, as in there was no evidence of wrongdoing. So, what does Team Obama do? It comes up with a phony report accusing the Baltimore Police Department of targeting black men for stops and arrests. So, Team Obama loses the Freddie Gray case, so instead, it just takes down the entire police department. Joining me now with the Page 5 report, reporter for the Independent Journal Review, Victoria Taff. Victoria, Obama was wrong on Trayvon Martin. Obama was wrong about Ferguson and Michael Brown. The hands up, don't shoot narrative was false. He was also wrong about Freddie Gray.
Correct. He's been wrong on all of them, and of course left in the lurch are the cops who have to do a job every single day, and that means keeping people safe. And President Obama unleashed his Justice Department upon several police departments where high-profile alleged police abuse cases have taken place. Baltimore City is the latest following the Freddie Gray case, and the DOJ took issue with where police stops were taking place, the kinds of police stops taking place, and escalation of force used against blacks. The DOJ determined that blacks were being singled out by cops in black areas.
We conclude that there is reasonable cause to believe that BPD engages in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the Constitution and federal anti-discrimination law. BPD engages in a pattern or practice of making unconstitutional stops, searches, and arrests, using enforcement strategies that produce severe and unjustified disparities in the rates of stops, searches, and arrests of African Americans, using excessive force, and retaliating against people engaging in constitutionally protected expression. These violations have deeply eroded the mutual trust between BPD and the community it serves, trust that is essential to effective policing as well as to officer and public safety. The problems in Baltimore didn't happen overnight or appear in a day. The pattern or practice that we found results from long-standing systemic deficiencies in the BPD.
In a city that is 63% black and a police force that is more than half minority, black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, the Justice Department concluded that the cops were racist. 44% of all stops were made in 2 areas, highly African American areas. So what does that mean? Well, it means marshaling limited resources to the high crime areas, right? The DOJ didn't look at it that way, Steph.
So what examples did the report actually give on this so-called racism that was happening? What stood out to you?
Well, the so-called unconstitutional stops were the so-called stop and frisk stops, wherein one federal court has ruled that those are unconstitutional, but it is not a Supreme Court decision yet. So what they've decided to do is to just characterize those as unconstitutional stops. Stop and frisks are, in fact, it can be an unconstitutional stop, and people don't have to subject themselves to them. But the police, including the attorney Mosby, who's the state attorney, asked for additional people, cops, to go through certain areas of town where there was a high amount of drug usage and sales and really come down hard on the people who were doing it. Among those people, Freddie Gray. In fact, just a week or so after she asked for those additional kinds of different police tactics, that's when the Freddie Gray incident happened. So they asked for it, they wanted police protection, they got it, and now look, they've got the Obama Justice Department saying, you know what, we're gonna take over.
In the timing of this report, I find a little peculiar, you know, knowing what we now know about the Freddie Gray case, that Obama came out literally a day after and started accusing police officers of racism involved in this case, even though one or two of the officers were black. And
well, 3 of the officers were black. The other 3 were of different racial backgrounds. I think 2 were Caucasian. And the thing is that, yes, the president has done some talking out of the side of his mouth sometimes about these things. He really needs to watch his language a little bit closer, because he might forget he's the president occasionally and actually start picking a fight with these guys. And the cops are just doing a job. And when they talk about wholesale changes needing to be happen at the Baltimore City Police Department, what I believe they're referring to are the the constant stops. There was a man who was included in this where in the last 4 years, he'd been stopped 30 times and never cited for anything. Now, come on, that's harassment. And those kinds of things need to stop. But when you ask the police to do a job wherein you ask them to be on the street corners to stop the Freddie Grays of the world, who was, by the way, a heroin dealer, then what you get are some people whose noses will be bent out of joint. And when you're in the area that is the most crime-ridden area of the city, and then you have 44% of the stops there, it stands to reason that police will, as I said, marshal their resources into those high-crime areas and start cracking some heads. And I don't mean that literally. Unfortunately, that's the impression being left by this report.
Yeah, this report couldn't have come at a worse time. Tensions are already high. And you have to wonder, what exactly Team Obama, what they're trying to do. Do they want to federalize police? How do they want to go forward with this? We know that crime is probably going to go up in Baltimore.
Oh, it already has. It already has. And yes, in fact, to answer your question about federalizing police, they want to federalize standards. And part of the reason they want to do that is because they want to get rid of the so-called broken windows theory of policing, wherein in Los Angeles as well as New York City, they basically took on the small problems, the vandalism, the loitering, etc., and they put a stop to that and sent people on their way. And as a result, it stopped a lot of crime, a lot of very serious crime, that where if you just never fixed the broken window, as they like to put it, then pretty soon the building was in bad shape, and pretty soon people were living in the building, and pretty soon there was shooting galleries in the building. Those were the kinds of thinking that they were going along with at this point in time. So the broken windows theory is on its way out because the Obama administration doesn't like it. Community policing on the way out. Retraining, demilitarizing the police on its way in. That's what the bottom line is.
And this isn't the first report to come out. We know that one came out of Ferguson as well,
right,
after Michael Brown, after they lost that case as well. But, this is, to me, also part of the divide and conquer strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, this particular report, is basically something that the news media will hold up and activists will hold up. It doesn't mean a heck of a lot. Some of the methodology is just really poor in this particular report. But this is just the starting grounds because, Steph, what's going to happen is the DOJ is going to come back and say, okay, we're going to have a consent decree based on this particular report. And this report will be the starting point, which makes it, of course, they get it out there, press releases, everybody reacts to it, makes them look guilty. And then what do? Just fold like origami to whatever the Justice Department wants them to do.